Get ready for it. Yeah, this is it. Go! Go!
Afternoon, B2. How's it going?
Hey, everyone. Well, looks like you've got a decent day in Melbourne there.
Yeah, it's Anzac Day, as you know, so we're both having a nice chill out day. And yeah, it's beautiful autumn day, 25 degrees, sun's out, enjoying a cold beer. Life couldn't be better.
Nice. Well, I can't say the same here in Perth. It's a bit gloomy for a change. We've had stunning weather up to today, but we've got a lot of rain in the air, and so it's sort of an indoor day. And so I'm not sporting my fancy background or anything, but just using the running high one, and got the puffer on, and yeah, it feels like we've reversed reversed things.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's good to have the shoe on the other foot for a change. Anyway, Kev, well, I think we've got a bit to talk to today, mainly based on a call you gave me last night. So without preempting, why don't you tell us a bit about that and a bit about where you're at, and we can talk about a few other things as well.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. Yeah, look, I've got some disappointing news that unfortunately I've made the call to withdraw from Comrades this year. I add this year onto that because hopefully there'll be another opportunity. But I guess, you know, I've obviously, as we've spoken about through this journey so far, there's been this ongoing Achilles issue that I've had, which has really plagued my training and various attempts at longer runs and the like. And it is something that, you know, I've had for probably about 12 years. So it's a fairly chronic sort of condition. And you sort of get into the space, I suppose, where, you know, if you've got something like that, you tend to try and manage it to the best of your ability. But it is something where, you know, if you have got some big goal like Comrades or even a marathon, it's something that's sort of really impacted me quite a lot, not only with this training regime, I suppose, but also previously when I ran Berlin and other marathons as well. So yeah, so it's been a very tough call to make, and as you know, I've tried to do everything to ensure that I can still give Comrades a crack. But I suppose it did came off the back of another sort of visit to the doctor and someone different this time, and some different advice. But you know, I think it probably, to be fair, it's sort of been leading to needing to make a decision around whether I sort of tough it out and try and run through it with a fair bit of pain versus rather think about doing another year. And I suppose for me, it's really boiled down to what we talk a lot about, the longevity of running. And, you know, when you've got a massive goal, you do need to give yourself the best shot at it as possible. And when you're a bit compromised, that makes it that much harder. But yeah, so that's the essence of it. And I clearly don't want to do myself any damage. And I think, you know, as much as I've spoken about lots of, you know, ways and means of getting around the pain, what I've also found is that the anti-inflammatories I've been taking have only had limited impacts. They were actually quite successful at first, and I got a couple of good runs done. But that effect of them seems to have worn off. So, you know, I'm not getting that relief at all. So I've been doing a few of the latter runs and walks in quite a bit of pain, and then pulling up pretty badly. So yeah, so that's the news, and I'm sort of really devastated from the perspective of us as brothers doing this as a package deal, and B1 and B2, and that part sort of hurts me the most, I think. But likewise, there's been lots of lessons and reflections that I can take out of this, which, you know, we'll touch on. But yeah, so sorry,
Yeah.
Hill, that's my news.
Yeah, it's big news, Kev. But as you say, it's not a sort of a snap decision you've made. I've sort of watched you struggle through this, and frankly, as I said to you last night, I think a lot of people would have pulled out a long time ago. So I know how much you wanted to do it, but I mean, it's obviously disappointing for me. But yeah, I mean, we'll talk a bit about what's next later. But I mean, you're still going to be there and be part of it. So that's an important thing. And I think, yeah, the other thing, look, everyone's got to make their own decisions. Only you know what's right. But from what I've seen and listened to everything that you've told me and sort of experienced it with you in some ways, I think you said to me last night that, if you look at your scans, your more recent scan versus your scan some time back, the tears in your Achilles have actually worsened. And so, that's a telltale sign in terms of, if you want to protect your sort of longevity of running, then I think you're doing a wise thing, Kev. I mean, it's as disappointing as it is. The bigger goal of, running for as long as we can, which I think we've both sort of set as, something we love doing, that's more important at the end of the day. So, yeah, disappointing, but we move on.
Yeah, thanks for those thoughts, and thanks for your support along the way. I mean, I've remained pretty committed from the perspective as well that I this is a journey we wanted to experience together, and the good news is we can still experience it together, and I'm going to be there, and likewise, our friend Mark has had similar news that he's also unable to do it with similar problems, and likewise he's still coming along. So we've got two injured runners, but I think being part of it and being able to put our efforts into your running and James and Derek and other people we know, that'll be powerful as well. And by the same token, we can sort of absorb as much of the atmosphere and drama of Comrades that it is, and hopefully that inspires us to continue the journey and come back. It's funny, I've sort of reflected on how you often read stories about runners who are injured and sort of go, well, they come back the following year to do the event and succeed. And I've always sort of gone, well, that's I haven't given that really much thought. I put so much emphasis on just trying to get to the start line that there certainly is a disappointment that goes with it, but you then need to sort of start focusing on the rehab and doing that properly. And I suppose I haven't really been able to focus as much on that whilst trying to train for an ultra, despite lots of different things I've tried. I was just writing down a few of those, and certainly the strengthening side of things has been helpful, but I mean, it still hasn't resolved the problem. So I still will continue to work on the calf strengthening side of things. As you know, I had the cortisone patch treatment, and probably, look, it's very individual, but for me, I don't put a lot of weight on that, having done it now twice. I really think it's got the potential as well to weaken the Achilles, and that's been mentioned a few times to me. So it's probably one to watch out for. And then anti-inflammatories as well have their uses, but likewise, you got to be careful that you're not masking the symptoms and making things worse. So I think certainly an element of that, where I had a couple of nice hit outs where I was relatively pain-free, but who knows what additional sort of damage was happening. But I think more importantly, some of the things you can do to cross-train, those things remain, and we know elite athletes doing this for their running, irrespective of whether they've got injuries or not. And so things like aqua jogging, which I tried for a while, cycling now that I'm doing quite a bit of, fast walking, probably an important one, and then even the Ultra G treadmill that I tried for a while, and just to get the pressure off the load off the Achilles. So definitely some stuff in there that's useful, and you can take learnings from and are applicable to many different injuries. And I suppose just coming back to our goals, Hill, we spoke a lot about the fact that goals are also there to be reviewed, and we spoke about SMART goals in particular. And I think ultimately one of those that jumps out for me is that your goal needs to be realistic. And whilst I felt my goal was realistic when I set it, as I reassessed as time went on, I suppose I started finding that it was less realistic, given where I was at, but I try to give it a chance and try to scale back and curtail the training and the load. Still hopeful that I could get to the start line. But yeah, you've got to keep reassessing that, and you've got to be a realist. And as much as you can be tough mentally, I think this is not life or death stuff. We do it for the enjoyment, and we do it for the event, and but there'll always be another event. So
Yeah.
So I think from that perspective, just reassessing that goal. And I know even yourself, you've sort of thought about your Bill Rowan goal and whether or not that's something you still want to go for. And likewise, I mean, I'd scaled mine back to really completing rather.
Yeah.
From the early days when I was talking about Bill Rowan as well.
Yeah, no, you've done I mean, we couched that whole goal thing, remember, Kevin, sustainability. And I think we called it sustainable goals, and you've done exactly what we said there. I mean, it's not the outcome that you were hoping for, but you've reassessed and you've figured out it's not the right goal for now. And it doesn't mean that goal is gone forever, as you said. So, focus on your rehab. Wally Hayward, as we know, he ran the Comrades when he was 80. So you've still got a few years before you hit that, Kev.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There is time, and if I can just once and for all try and beat this injury, then I feel like I'll be in a better space. And in fact, I know a guy here who's had a similar injury and has beaten it and is running really strong at the moment. So you've just got to have hope, and you've got to work hard at the rehab. But it's difficult to work hard at the rehab when you're trying to prepare for a big event. So sometimes you just got to probably let that go and say, right, okay, well, let's focus. Let the goal be the rehab, not the race necessarily.
Yeah.
So that'll be the change of focus. But yeah, definitely a few lessons in it, Hill. As we said, I suppose we're still growing and learning as runners as well. So a few sort of things I've taken out. I also noted down, certainly putting your best foot forward. I don't know if that's the right one to use because both feet weren't great, but certainly trying is the important part, and throwing everything at it. So I feel like on that front, I've given it a good crack. Would have liked to have obviously given the race a crack, but I think it's probably more sensible in this case not to. I think, as mentioned, keep assessing where you are, assessing whether your goal is realistic as you go, and being sure that the longevity of running is at the forefront of your mind as well, that you don't get caught up in the moment of just wanting to do it irrespective of your injury. Obviously, managing your injury while you're training is critical. And I think a lot of people out there have injuries that they sort of manage and manage their load accordingly. So, just doing that and being sensible about that and listening to your body, as you've said many times, being kind to yourself sometimes, not being too rigid on your program, because in my case, I actually had it back right away from the program. And there were occasions where, as you know, we've had 3.5 hours on the program, and I've gone, I'm going to have to do like a duathlon or a triathlon or something just to get this in. But at times, then again, being realistic, I had to back away from that and do something less. And you're never going to catch up that particular training session, and nor should you try. So just being flexible on your program as well. Certainly there's no silver bullet treatment out there, whatever your injury is. It doesn't appear to be anyway. So you've got to be patient, and you've got to work through it and seek out the best course of treatment that's sort of individual to you. And you get lots of advice, and some of it's good and some's not so good. So you've got to try and discern what works, what doesn't. And some of that's just trial and error, unfortunately. And then once you've set on a course of action or some intervention, it's pretty important to stay the course. And I'll be honest to say, quite often I haven't stayed the course on some of that. And that again, if you don't give it a good shot, you're probably not going to be successful. So staying the course, I think, is important. And there's always next time. As much as it pains me to say that, I think there is always next time. And fortunate in our respect. We've got ties to South Africa, and therefore I probably see myself going back to South Africa several times, and therefore there'll be hopefully another opportunity for Comrades. And I think, those are some of the learnings I took out of it. But probably enough about me and my announcement. But I'm really keen to hear from you around how your April's going. April, they talk about in Comrades terms as being the tough part of the program. And I wondered how you're feeling. Certainly on paper, I'm amazed and I'm encouraged about where you're at, because I look at your Strava results and that sort of thing, and I go, it's amazing, but only I guess how you're feeling and what you're going through. So let us know how are you feeling and how's it going.
I'll share that with you shortly, Kev. But I just have to say, just in closing on your announcement and just listening to you talk about, where you're at and how you're thinking about it. To me, that's almost the most impressive thing, because I know personally how disappointed you are, and how, I know if it was me, how I would feel. So, approaching it as positively as you have, and already starting to think about, how do you move beyond and still keep your goals and dreams alive? That's very impressive. So, well done, and keep going, right?
Yeah, thanks.
Yes, April for me has it's been interesting. I think I shared with you, Kev. We still follow the Fordyce Fusion, who's this is Bruce Fordyce's sort of training group, and they put out a little ad for their webinar, and they had the words on it: appalling, irritable, heavy, awful, lurchy. Extract from Bruce's training diaries proves that April is tough. You're not suffering alone. So
those words jumped out at you a bit by the sounds of it.
Yeah, they did. As you said, I actually, first of all, I'm also positive, because I count myself sort of very fortunate, and feel overall I'm in a good place. Training is actually going well. The bizarre thing in some ways is, I thought, and I say this all touching wood here, because there's still a fair way to go, and so sometimes it feels like it's a bit on the knife's edge. But at this point, I thought where I would be finding it particularly hard would be physically. Last week was the biggest week of running I've ever had in training. And physically it is hard, there's no doubt. I am tired, and there are times when I just don't feel like getting out there because I'm physically shattered. But the harder part, particularly this last week, has actually been the mental part, which I didn't probably foresee as much, because in some ways I've always felt that that's probably more my strength. And it's just hard, it's relentless, as you know, Kev. You've had to push through some really hard things as well. And I've really got nothing to complain about, because, injury-wise, I'm pretty good. I have a few niggles, but it's going well. So when I saw that, I thought, okay, well, at least I'm not the only person feeling like that. April is the biggest month of training, and it is tough, and it's, we've lost daylight savings here, so getting out of bed at 5:30 to do the long runs and stuff in the dark, it is hard work.
Yeah.
And I had a few, last week I had a few sort of mental failures, if you like. I actually got up a couple of times to do my run, and just, actually went back to bed almost. Well, not almost. The one day I did, I just said, I just can't do this. I'm just too tired, and I'm not there. But I think, and I had almost 2 or 3 moments like that in the week, and each time I managed to complete the run on the day. So, I came back a few hours later or whatever it was, and I got it done. And, I have to apologize to you, James. The last one was the Sunday run. We were going to do, well, James did do it. I didn't do it. We were doing a run in Princess Park in Carlton. And I just couldn't get out of bed at 5:30 in the morning and get there. So sorry, James. But I did manage to get out and get the run done later in the day. So, that's just an example. It's a grind, but, I'm sticking to it. And in some ways, I mean, it's disappointed as I am that you're not doing this, Kev. It's given me some extra motivation to just push through some of these things.
Yeah, well, you're the sole representative now for running high, but no pressure. But I mean, you are in a good spot, and I mean, I've no doubt. I've even felt that mental pressure. It's probably the first day now since obviously making the decision, where I've gone. You know what? This morning it was raining. I had planned a cycle, and sort of went, well, there's not the need as much now to do it. I mean, clearly, I do want to maintain my fitness and set my next goal, but be kind to yourself and maybe have a line this morning. So yeah, I was guilty of that today, but the pressure's been lifted a little bit, which is sometimes tough about these things, because that whatever you're going to skip or miss is actually potentially sort of costly. But by the same token, it's not always the case. If you miss a few sessions here or there, it's not necessarily going to be the end of the world. So maybe sometimes that's the way to go. He'll just defer. I mean, I'm not suggesting that's the best way to go, but I think sometimes you might be in a better headspace later in the day, and so
which is what I ended up doing. And then, as I said, I ended up having the best sort of training week I've had, and then come into it feeling like today, for instance, felt invigorated again. So I did a track session today. So yeah, it's as we've said from the start, it's a roller coaster ride, and having people you can share the journey with, and people that are running with you, but even other people. It's there's a bunch of stuff that you draw on through this, and there are 20,000 people doing Comrades, so we're certainly not the only ones grinding through this at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. It is interesting watching people's journey, and I suppose we've got a smallish network of people that we know doing it. So you watch their journey and you have conversations, and I think until you've attempted it, you don't really know, do you? It's quite a thing.
No, and that's part of it. I think it's the unknown and that almost like fear factor. When I read some of the stuff that I've been reading about the race, and some of the stuff that I still will go through, it's terrifying in some ways when I look at those hills and that elevation map, for instance. But it is the unknown fact. I think if you've done Comrades, and we know, people do it year in and year out, the benefit they have is mentally they know what's ahead of them. I think for us, there's always going to be a bit of the unknown, and I'm still feeling that unknown. But that's part of the adventure, and it'll be part of the reward, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the all the hard work sort of culminates on that day, which is why I've no doubt it's such an emotional day for most people. And when you see people finishing, there's this unbelievable emotion, and I think that relates obviously to a lot of the the heartache through training, the sacrifices made by family and friends, and to that point, I just also wanted to, I suppose, thank family and friends who've supported me on the journey. I think at times it's probably they're sick and tired of hearing about my woes, so particularly my family. But it's been great to have that level of encouragement and people that you can talk to and that spur you on as well. So without that, as you said, one probably throw in the towel a lot earlier. But it's been great to have that, and having your network close and people that you can confide in and talk to about what you're going through is pretty important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, what I've found is that, it's not, I mean, obviously runners you talk to a lot because they, you talk the same language, as it were. But, I've really found, obviously, family for me has also been massively supportive. But, I've got a few really good friends who know nothing or little about running, but have been incredibly supportive, and just the odd text message going, hang in there, or just thinking of you. It's just, it's that those small things are all really helpful when you're grinding through it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll throw our support behind you and keep the encouragement coming. Hill, I thought I'd probably touch on sort of next steps for me. I mean, whilst I haven't sat down and really worked through any finite details, but my priority is going to be to try and rehab the injury now. So I've come across a treatment called prolotherapy, where they effectively inject around the heel and just use it like a sugar-based solution. It sounds quite strange, but effectively that then causes an irritation to that area and stimulates the healing response. And after a long period of having this injury, the body's not really doing its job of healing the injury anymore, and therefore you've got to stimulate the healing through some sort of intervention like that. So it's quite similar to PRP, which is a more invasive and more expensive sort of procedure where they use your own blood and do a similar thing. But this one appears to be a better fit for the injury I have, and the doctor I've seen is quite confident that it will make significant difference. And you still would continue with your strength training and the like, and also you can continue with some level of exercise, but clearly running in the short term is probably not really the answer. So I'll probably stick more to cross training. I've been enjoying a bit of the cycling again. My past life I was a cyclist, so I actually went out last weekend and bought some Lycra. You'll be shocked to hear. So my old Lycra is about 20 years old. So anyway, I've now have a new kit and I can feel the part. And then as I said, I definitely want to just focus on making sure we see you to the finish line and supporting you on the journey, and also keep the running high Comrades Diaries going. So that's where I'll put my energy into that, and then obviously the Comrades experience, I think whether you're a spectator or participating, I think is incredible. So I'm looking forward to spectating and seconding and making myself hopefully useful to you. And then probably what I wanted to finish with was just to say that in my sights is also convincing you to do it again with me next year, or maybe not next year, maybe the year after. But I'm guessing that'll depend on your experience.
Yeah, I never say never, Kev. I've said this is one time, but you do never say never, and I think it's going to be an amazing experience irrespective. I would have to say though, if we do another, it's got to be an up, because then I can get the up and down. But I won't get ahead of myself.
Sounds like it's got to be next year then.
I first got to get the down, so let's focus on that. But yeah, no, that's, as I said, Kev, it's very impressive to hear you talk so positively. So that's like you've got a good, I think, few things to focus on and path ahead of you. As do I, slightly different in the next few weeks and months, but it's going to culminate in a massive event, which is Comrades on the 11th of June, which is going to be amazing.
Yeah, so I think the last email I received around Comrades was a few days ago. It was 50 days. So you put in day terms, it doesn't seem a lot, but it's coming upon us quite soon. And we, of course, head out on 2nd of June. So you'll be well into taper mode at that point. And hopefully I don't distract you too much with the fact that I'm now not doing it, and probably will be a bit more relaxed than you. But no,
distractions are good, Kev. I mean, I'm looking at my program. I've really got probably 4 weeks of serious stuff ahead of me, and then it starts to taper off. So if you think about it in that context, it's sort of halfway, or maybe even more than halfway through the real tough part, and so that's a good way to look at it. Going, I've just got to keep going here, and then it starts to and then it all just builds to the race, which is what obviously the big moment will be.
Yeah, it sounds like that hit out on I think it's the 7th of May, that weekend. I know that's when I was targeting the 5-hour training session. And that's probably the one that hopefully once you've done that, you've sort of broken the back of it and of the training, and then it sort of starts getting a little bit easier from there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know you actually here next week, so it'll be good to see you. But you know, you got to look for ways to get through those things. And you know, last week, or I found it particularly tough because I had some very long runs that I just had to grind through on my own. But that run, which is just under 2 weeks, which will be 5+ hours, 50 to 60 odd Ks. You know, I've got a group of people together. We're going to spend the weekend away, and we just James is going to join, and we're going to, you know, get have some fun as well as obviously some really hard work. But that's the way I think I'm hopefully going to get through that one.
Yeah, that's excellent. So, I mean, is the way to do it. I know you put the invite out. Unfortunately, my timing didn't quite work out, but yeah, I'll be there next week, and I'm sure we'll talk some more running, and hopefully do our next episode of this. But yeah, we've gone a bit long today, but yeah, there was a bit to talk about. So hopefully everyone's up to date with our positions now, and I think all that's left to be done is the usual, which is our quote. And so I've dug out one, Hill, which I think talks to probably both our situations right now, and it has a nice positive spin to it. So let me throw it out. It's from the great Winston Churchill, and it goes: "A pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity, an optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty." So yeah, certainly for me, I hope to rise from this difficulty and hopefully see the positives out of it. And likewise for you in terms of your April, if you want to call that difficulty, I'm sure there's many rays of light already just in terms of what you've achieved and that you're holding up so well. So that's it from me. B1, any parting words from you?
No, I really like that quote, Kev. And as I said, I think you've already displayed that. So yeah, actually, the parting word I'll give you on my very tough run on Saturday, I came up with my mantra. So you know, we've talked about this before, but I think a lot of sports people have mantras that they can just sort of keep themselves going when things get really tough. And so
we're not going to have to edit it out. It doesn't involve words that we need to edit out.
Yeah, well, there were might have been a few of those words on the run on Saturday, but my mantra is quite simple, but it actually goes back to one of my values, which we talked about in the goal setting, where we said how important values are to sort of frame everything that you do. And one of my values is growth, or grow. And so my mantra will be keep going, keep growing.
Oh, nice.
So
yeah,
I might need to use that a few times on Comrades.
Well, maybe we'll get a slogan up as well. Yeah, that's fantastic. That's a good one.
Anyway. Well, thanks, Kev, and I'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks, Hill. See you.
Bye.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.
This day is gonna be the greatest memory, making history. Let's go. You don't need no luck with that golden touch. Time to light it up. Let's go. Get ready for it. Get ready for it. Get ready for it.